for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country. Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic flypast. A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's time for State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, right here on GB News. On tonight's show, a planned US review of gender care has slammed the planned NHS trial of puberty blockers as being not ethical. I'm going to be asking tonight what on earth is going on in our hospitals. The press regulator Ipso is being accused of undermining free speech after they reprimanded the Telegraph newspaper for reporting Michael Gove's comments in Parliament, where he linked the Muslim Association of Britain to the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, critics argue that the ruling could impact journalists' ability to report freely. Is Michael Gove correct? The Football Association has banned transgender women from playing women's football as the ramifications of the Supreme Court decision reverberate around our institutions. Is this yet another victory for common sense? I'm going to be joined by journalist and broadcaster Chris Scudder to talk about that very question. And I'll be closing the programme with a very special guest tonight. Balazs Orban is the political director of Prime Minister Viktor Orban in Hungary, and he's going to be giving me the latest on his country's strained relationship with the European Union. You don't want to miss this interview. It's going to be great. And that State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin, starts right now. Now, I'll also be joined tonight by my top panel, contributing editor to Novara Media, Michael Walker, and assistant comment editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn. As ever, let me know your views tonight at gbnews.com/yoursay. You can reach out on X at gbnews or at GoodwinMJ. Right now, let's go to the news.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you. Some breaking news for you. President Trump has confirmed that Mike Waltz will no longer be his national security advisor. Waltz has been under pressure since he took responsibility for inadvertently adding a journalist to a signal group in which sensitive military strikes in Yemen were shared. Trump announced on social media he'll nominate Mr. Waltz now to serve as the US ambassador to the United Nations. Well, Waltz is the first high-profile official to leave since the Trump administration took over in January. And Trump added Marco Rubio, the current US Secretary of State, seen here at the G7 meeting in March, will be his national security advisor on an interim basis. The English and Scottish FAs are banning transgender women from playing women's football from the 1st of June. It follows last month's ruling in the Supreme Court that found the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Downing Street says biology matters and it will support governing bodies to protect the integrity, safety and fairness of sport. English netball has indicated it will be changing its guidelines. English cricket is set to join football in banning transgender women from its female competitions. Harrods has been hit by a cyber attack just days after Marks & Spencer and Co-op were targeted. The luxury department stores understood to have been forced to shut down some systems to fend off attempts to gain unauthorised access. Well, Harrods says its website and all stores have continued to operate, but it does follow similar incidents in recent days linked to the hacking collective Scattered Spider. Police are appealing for witnesses to come forward after two of their horses were attacked by a dog. It happened in Shepherd's Bush Green on Monday around midday. Now, the dog repeatedly tried to bite the horse's legs, while the owner struggled to get it under control. It was eventually stopped by members of the public. Well, thankfully, Yvonne and Snaffles, the horses, are recovering well at their stables. Just minor injuries. The officers were unharmed. Counter-terrorist officers at the Met Police have opened an investigation into the Irish rapper's kneecap. They've had several concerts cancelled after footage emerged that appears to show band members calling for the death of MPs and one of its members shouting "Up Hamas, up Hezbollah." It's a crime to express support for banned groups in the UK. Now, Kneecap said in a statement earlier this week they rejected any suggestion that we would seek to incite violence against MPs. They say the videos have been taken out of context. A number of artists, including Fontaine's DC, Massive Attack, Pulp and Paul Weller have signed a joint statement in support of the group. And the record for the UK's warmest start to May has been broken. A temperature of 29.3 degrees has been recorded at Kew Gardens in London. That's just over a centigrade higher than the previous record-beating temperature. These pictures, I should add, are from Primrose Hill and Regent's Park in central London, where clearly it has been lovely and hot as well. Those are your headlines. More from me in about an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, I have a very important question. What on earth is going on at the British Medical Association, the BMA? Because a few days ago, the BMA's resident doctors, or junior doctors to you and me, voted to condemn the judgment of the Supreme Court's transgender ruling as scientifically illiterate. Yeah, you heard that right. Britain's hospitals are currently staffed by people who refuse to accept the most basic facts about human biology. Well, today, condemnation came from across the pond. An official review of gender care ordered by President Trump slammed the planned NHS trial of puberty blockers here in the UK as unethical. The US Department of Health and Human Services concluded that the evidence to justify giving hormones to children, was very low, going as far to argue that the trial, and I quote, may conflict with well-established ethical standards for human subjects research. Let's not forget that the British medical establishment have formed for this. When the watershed Cass review by Dr. Hilary Cass was published last year, which also pointed to the shaky foundations of gender medicine, what did the British Medical Association do? I'll tell you what they did. Members of the BMA Council voted for a motion to publicly critique the Hilary Cass review. Let's take a moment to step back and marvel at the sheer madness of all this. How do we have an expert class in this country that blindly follow gender ideology to such a degree that the Supreme Court of this country had no choice but to decree that a man is a man and a woman is a woman? I hope that the recent Supreme Court ruling will be the beginning of an avalanche of common sense on this issue in this country, and that more and more institutions will shake off gender ideology and accept biological reality. However, I fear that this country's self-proclaimed intellectual elite will have gone too far down the gender rabbit hole, and the medical establishment are just one symptom of a much deeper problem in this country. An expert class infected by this woke mind virus. Somebody call a doctor. As ever, let me know what you think at gbnews.com/yoursay. You can reach out over on X at gbnews or at GoodwinMJ. But I'm delighted right now to be joined by the Senior Legal Communications Officer for ADF International, Lois McClatchy-Miller, as well as my panel contributing editor at Navarra Media, Michael Walker, and assistant comment editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn. Lois, if I could just start, many people out there scratching their heads. The BMA, British Medical Association, supposed to be experts, supposed to be, the doctors who are relying on science. They're issuing these letters and these sort of protests, which are making people wonder, what the hell has happened to the expert class?
Well, yet here again, we have another concrete study, another concrete piece of evidence that child transition is one of the greatest forms of child abuse that we have ever seen in human history. It is cruel to tell a child that they're born in the wrong body. It is cruel to give them chemicals and scalpels and toxic puberty blockers, they're called, to change their bodies. And actually, they're born perfectly. They just need love and affirmation to grow up and love their bodies just the way they are. And yet, as you say, this expert class has been feeding down this harmful ideology in schools and in hospitals and impacting our kids with this. It needs to stop.
So Hilary Cass did her comprehensive review here in the UK, where she basically said there wasn't enough science, there wasn't enough evidence for gender medicine, basically. The US are about to release this comprehensive review of gender medicine and basically saying the same thing. We don't think the UK should be subjecting kids to puberty blocker trials, which, by the way, are still going ahead. The Labour government has not completely ruled them out. So, again, people out there scratching their heads. We've got doctors pursuing something for which there is insufficient evidence.
Indeed, and in fact, the report from the US indicated that these studies, if carried out at all, should be carried out on animals. Now, think that through. That means the NHS here in this country are testing out dangerous drugs that can cause our children to become infertile for life instead of testing them on animals. And my goodness, they'd probably have an outcry from the animal rights people if they dared try this on a rat. And yet our children are being subjected to this. It's horrific.
So what do you think is actually driving this? Because I would like to think the NHS and particularly the British Medical Association and doctors will be taken into account, you know, evidence, science, studies. And it makes me nervous, actually, to think the NHS and doctors are not adapting their working practices in response to the evidence. So just take us inside the minds of these people. What is driving this?
Well, it's a clear ideological warfare, isn't it? I mean, all of the science points against this, and any kind of logical argument shows that a child who can't decide what they want to eat for breakfast cannot decide what gender they want to be in if they want to be infertile for the rest of their lives. So logic points against this, science points against this, and yet this infiltration of ideology that we must affirm somebody's confusion that they're born in the wrong body, has been driven so hard into institutions for so many years. It's hard to get out, but you know, doctors have to speak up and be bold and be brave and say, absolutely not. We're not doing this anymore, either on the NHS or in drug trials. This has to stop.
Michael Walker, UK Supreme Court says the definition of a woman is biological. The expert class now kicking off, the BMA and others saying, actually, we disagree with the Supreme Court. What are we to make of this?
Well, you call them the expert class. I mean, these are people who've gone through 7 years of medical training, and with all due respect...
Well, they're a faction within the
BMA.
The faction within the NHS.
They all join the BMA.
But there are lots of people that won't agree within the NHS.
But the majority opinion has come up with this. Anyway...
So you think they're right to object to the UK Supreme Court ruling?
Well, I think that actually I trust doctors more than I trust your guest here, because with all due respect, you're calling these people ideological. You've come from an organisation called the Alliance for Defending Freedom. There's a quote from your CEO. We mentioned the new promotion of paedophilia in the context of talking about the influence of... Can I finish it? Can I finish it?
No, this is out of
context. We mentioned the new promotion of paedophilia in the context of talking about the influence of homosexual behaviour on college campuses, because, despite all objections to the contrary, the two are intrinsically linked.
OK, Michael,
that's the CEO.
I've never heard this quote before, so I would need to source that for you. But if it comes from somebody who's affiliated to our organisation many years ago when I was a child, and I don't think that person is our CEO, actually, that, you know, to bring that up out of context, out of a different debate...
What do you think about gay marriage,
is taking away from the most important issue that we have.
Can we keep it focused on the current
So my point
debate?
is...
Because there are lots of people out there scratching their heads who are going to have to use the NHS. We've had a UK Supreme Court say we do not basically endorse this definition, this gender self-identification definition. We've had the Cass review, Michael, that has said there's insufficient evidence for gender.
So I'm not sure you've read the Supreme Court ruling, because what the Supreme Court ruling says...
I've read the Supreme Court ruling and the Cass review.
Well, shall I tell you what it says and see if this fits with what you're trying to put forward now? So the Supreme Court ruling says, in black and white, we do not mean for this ruling to speak to how we should, in normal life, talk about sex and gender. This is very specific. It's referring to how the Equality Act should be interpreted. That's in black and white in the ruling. Now, you're here with a religious extremist in your, I suppose, a reform campaigner now. You're both saying that all doctors in the BMA are nonsense. Well, the Cass review... So what you've done now on this show... So the Cass review has said there's insufficient evidence for puberty blockers to be given sort of as a... Unless... So what she said specifically was there's insufficient evidence for puberty blockers to be given unless it's part of a trial. Now, what the Trump Department of Health, who also doesn't think you should get vaccinated against measles, by the way, has said is that this trial shouldn't go ahead. So what you're putting forward is the Trump administration disagreeing with Hilary Cass. So you've got one of two options. You can either say it's outrageous and unreasonable to disagree with Hilary Cass, which seems to be what you're suggesting, or you can agree with these guys, right? So you're trying to have it both ways.
No, I'm saying let me be absolutely clear. I'm saying any reasonable reading of the evidence would lead you to the... Can I finish?
Yeah, sure.
Because I believe I'm the host of the show. Would lead you to the conclusion there's insufficient evidence to be subjecting children to these kinds of medical interventions. Poppy Coburn.
The Cass review, I have read it. I've read it in full. It does say things like we need more evidence, it's inconclusive. I think doctors usually, when they don't know the correct outcome, will say we need to continue with this with trials. I agree that I think the immediate response of people to the Trump administration's report is people are going to think it's politicised. But this is one of the issues, right? Because people now feel that they cannot trust the views of doctors anymore because it's now become a very, very hot, we can tell here, it's a very hot political issue. And the problem is, if the BMA is giving out guidance, if Hillary Cass is giving out guidance, and if Paediatric Associations of America are giving out guidance, people are going to choose it based on political affiliation rather than what always has to be at the heart of it is what is good for children. And I'm not a doctor. I don't know what's good to children. I think it's personally dangerous to do medical interventions of children when they are under 18. But yeah, more data, more evidence is a good thing.
Lois.
Yeah, I don't need religion. I don't need a medical background to know that it is wrong to give. Well, I don't need one to know what a man or woman is, and I don't need anything to tell me that it is wrong to tell a little girl that she should be on a pathway to having a double mastectomy and to have her body altered because children are born perfectly without having to need
I'll answer any question you give to me. I'll answer any question you give to me. Do you think men should be able to get married with each other?
This is a completely irrelevant. Why are you trying to throw off the
because I think it's important for people to know where you're coming from here. You're not coming from here from a position of caring about children. You're coming from a position of wanting to impose a very conservative religious doctrine on society. That's what your organisation has done for decades.
This is a complete smear campaign. Right?
I'm just reading quotes from your CEO. And I'm asking what you really believe. You're against LGBT people. What do you think about gay sex, for example?
This is ridiculous.
What do you think about it? I'll tell you what I think about anything.
Changed. Kids being told that they're born in the wrong body.
You want to impose a very conservative religious doctrine on the whole of society.
Do you think a 16-year-old and 18-year-old should have a double mastectomy for the rest of their lives because of this poisonous idea? This is exactly what's under discussion.
I think this should be a decision which is left to families
and this is what
and
the Cass report shows,
and right-wing religious organisations should stick out of our private lives.
Can we get back to the actual question at hand? Because there are lots of folks watching this show who are saying, as I said at the outset, we've had a lot of evidence, a lot of studies out there that... Michael, stop please interrupting, saying there is insufficient evidence to be subjecting children to medical pathways, trying to change their gender, and at the same time, the BMA, which is apparently a reputable professional association, is not accepting that evidence.
Well, you keep saying there's mountains of evidence saying this. Now, the Cass report...
Well, it's the most comprehensive review that's been done in the Western world.
So the Cass report said there's not enough evidence to be giving this as a routine treatment, but we should be giving it as part of trials. That's literally what it said, right? That's what it said. That's in it. Now, I don't know if you've read it or not, but it seems to me you might be misleading the audience because that's what it said. What this Trump department has said is that that trial shouldn't go ahead. Now, that's disagreeing with Hillary Cass, right? So what I'm saying here is let's do what Hillary Cass said and do a trial. And I will trust the medical establishment to do that over and above you and you.
Michael, I think there's another issue here as to whether, given the evidence base is so flimsy, whether we should be subjecting children to randomised controlled trials.
It wouldn't be a randomised controlled trial.
Of course
that's not how it would work.
Why should we be subjecting children
Well, have this conversation with Hillary Cass.
Can I finish? No, you've raised this. I'm asking you a question.
Yes.
Why should we be subjecting children in this country to a experiment on puberty blockers?
Well, so the reason people take puberty blockers, and I think this is a genuinely complex issue. I think smart medics disagree on this.
So now it's complex. You said we should be subjecting children to the randomised experiment. Right. I'm asking you why.
So Hillary Cass, right, she thinks that we should have some trials on this. Now, there are plenty of young people and their families and their doctors who think that puberty blockers would be a good path for them to go down. Now, I know trans women who are in adulthood. You might think they've made the wrong decision by becoming trans. I personally don't think it's a choice. I think it's a bit like the way I was born gay. And what they say to me is that their life would have been a lot more easy if they'd had puberty blockers when they were a teenager, because that meant they wouldn't have taken on the secondary sex characteristics that makes it difficult to live as a trans woman if you've got broader shoulders, if you're taller. So that's why many families, many young people and their doctors say maybe it would be a good idea, before you develop all these secondary sex characteristics, to take some puberty blockers. Now, there are other people that say there's some dangers there because maybe puberty will help resolve your gender dysphoria. Genuine disagreement. This is where Hilary Cass has come in and said, OK, well, let's do some more trials. So you're using the word subjected. What's going to happen here is that there'll be a young person, their family, and their GP who will say, we think this is a good course of action. The young person wants it, the family wants it, the GP wants it. OK, let's let them do what they want. Now, subjected makes it seem like this is being done to them.
Poppy, should we be subjecting children to these kinds of trials, or should we actually be working up the evidence base on puberty blockers away from children?
I think it's difficult because this is a question of medicalisation, right? And I think you're correct in raising that, like some adult trans women will say, and they are correct, right? A lot of the discourse around medicalised transitioning in the country is precisely because they've gone through male puberty or trans men have gone through female puberty. In my personal opinion, I think it's a very difficult thing to say that children should have these interventions at a very young age that can lead to things like, as we say, permanent infertility. Now, I would actually say I have a relatively high degree of trust in the medical institution in the UK. I really, really, genuinely do. I think generally people want the best for young children and patients. That's one of the reasons why the Cash Review was so brilliant. That's one of the reasons we've had very good political interventions on this, even from people in the Labour Party who I don't necessarily agree with. But we need more data, we need more evidence.
Now, a spokesperson for the BMA has said to GB News, attendees at the BMA's resident doctor conference voted to show their opposition to the Supreme Court ruling on Saturday. However, BMA-wide policy is set at the annual representative meeting, with the next meeting coming in June. The BMA respects trans patients' dignity, autonomy and human rights, and continues to believe that trans doctors, NHS workers and patients deserve dignity, safety and equitable access to healthcare and healthcare facilities. Well, the debate, no doubt, will continue. Thank you to my panel. Don't go anywhere, as later in the programme I'm going to be joined by Viktor Orban's political director, Balazs Orban, to discuss the state of his country's relationship with the European Union. But next, Michael Gove has criticised a media regulator, Ipso, for undermining free speech. Is he correct? We're going to be debating that in 2 minutes.
Today, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections,
mayoral elections, and one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night,
live around the country,
as the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 p.m. tonight.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Can you find love in your twilight years? That's what we're asking this morning. Broadcaster Ryan Mark Parsons and former Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe join us now. Good to see you both this morning. Anne, let's start with you. Is 70 too old to date, do you think?
70 isn't too old for anything.
Oh.
Everybody ages at different rates, both mentally, physically, in the sorts of things they like. When you say to me, is 80 too late is 70, well, we might even say 80. It's too late to find love. The answer is just look around you. Lots of people have. But let me say right away, no, that's not an invitation. I've absolutely no ambitions in that area at all.
Ryan Mark, what do you make of it? Do we need to stop putting a bar on ageing and dating?
No, I don't think we should. I think once you get to such an old age, you really should be looking for love internally. I mean, you should self-love. I just don't see the point at 70 years old to be searching for love at that point. I think you should go on holiday somewhere. I think you should find love with the sunshine and a cocktail, perhaps, instead of looking for a man or a woman. I think at what point do you decide that, you know, love is not going to come around knocking on your door? And I think probably at the age of 70, that is when you should decide it's time to give up. I'm 24, living in London. I know how incredibly hard it is to find love. I don't know how anyone who has wrinkles and grey hair at the age of 70 over someone like me could perhaps find love. I just don't think it's possible. I think it's a nice idea, but I think it's not feasible. And also, I don't think there's any point at that age.
The People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, the press regulator IPSO has been accused by Michael Gove of undermining free speech in this country after it reprimanded the Telegraph newspaper for reporting comments made in Parliament. The Tory veteran, Michael Gove, had alleged that the Muslim Association of Britain was affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood, a banned group in some countries. While Mr Gove's statements were protected by parliamentary privilege, he was speaking in the House of Commons, IPSO ruled that the Telegraph misled readers by not publishing the response of the Muslim Association of Britain, which denied the allegations. Now, critics argue this ruling could have a profound knock-on effect on the ability of journalists in this country to report freely, raising concerns about the balance between accurate reporting and ensuring fairness for those mentioned. In fact, 3 former cabinet ministers have now raised their concerns about IPSO, including Sir David Davis, the former Brexit secretary, who has called on parliamentary authorities to speak to the regulator. Is Michael Gove correct? Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel tonight. Poppy Goburn from The Telegraph. Perhaps you could give readers a bit of context as to what the issue is at the core of this story, because it is fundamentally an issue of free speech.
Yeah, of course. So IPSO, it's an independent press regulator. It's supposed to give scrutiny to newspapers in the United Kingdom. But of course, these bodies themselves sometimes need a bit of scrutiny. And I think that's really what a lot of this story is about. So the reason why Michael Gove came out and criticised IPSO is because he had utilised parliamentary privilege to make comments about a group called the Muslim Association of Britain. And he used this parliamentary privilege to make a statement about whether or not there was a connection between them and another group which has been accused of having extremist ties. Now, this was reported...
Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, this was reported by The Telegraph, and then IPSO decided to slap the newspaper down for this. Now, the reason why people are understandably, I think, quite frustrated by this is because the accusation is made of, well, when a politician uses parliamentary privilege, it is then the right of a newspaper to report what they've said, right? You know, they've said it in Parliament. It is literally their privilege to do so. And I think some of the concerns that people have raised about IPSO before do have a bit of weight to them. So it can be used by anyone. And this is the best example. Do you remember the now deceased head of the Wagner Group, Putin's private military contractors, Yevgeny Prigozhin? He actually complained to IPSO a couple of years ago about The Telegraph. And IPSO looked into the complaint. It was a 187-page complaint that he made about The Telegraph, who would, understandably, not big fans of the Wagner Group and what they're doing. And IPSO actually went through and read it, and obviously they didn't uphold it, but the point is that, it's a tool. And like any other tool, it can get things wrong, it can get things right, it can get things wrong, and so it deserves a bit of scrutiny.
OK. Michael Walker.
I mean, it seems a bit of a storm in a teacup, this one, in a way, because no one's saying the Telegraph couldn't have reported it. So they absolutely had the right to say what Michael Gove said. The complaint from, well, I suppose the complaint from Muslim Association of Britain with IPSO is upheld, is that they didn't include in their report the fact that the Muslim Association of Britain had denied the claim.
The right to reply. So just to be clear for the viewers, IPSO is saying that the Telegraph reported Michael Gove's comments, but they didn't give the right of reply to the Muslim Association of Britain.
Exactly. Okay. I mean, it's also worth noting that this is... So IPSO, another reason why it seems like a bit of a storm in a teacup is because people might get confused. IPSO has nothing to do with the government or the state. IPSO is a voluntary organisation which the newspapers join, the newspapers fund, and the newspapers do the hiring. So it's kind of an internal debate amongst the British press about the British press on an issue which, to me, doesn't seem that consequential. Because obviously in the future, the Telegraph can just publish the right of reply.
It's just a storm in a teacup, Poppy Goburn.
I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, insofar as, there needs to be scrutiny on bodies like this. As you say, it's a voluntary organisation, but like that scrutiny sometimes has to go both ways, right? I mean, like I think Ipsos sometimes does make decisions which are eminently sensible. Like they recently said that the complaint that was made by Essex Police about our reporting on Alison Phillips and her treatment at their hands was completely justified, which I think is, again, completely correct. We were simply reporting the facts that we had. It was a story in the public interest. It's very much around an issue of free speech.
Alison Pearson.
Yes, Alison Pearson, one of our columnists. And I think it's really, really important because free speech is such an important, like, touchy issue that, like, all of these issues have gone through with a fine-tooth comb because we need to get it right. Because if people don't trust an independent regulator, then who are they going to trust?
But is there not also an issue here, and let's just be frank, or allow me to be frank, there is an issue that about the organisations that it is involving, the story, that there is a sense that free speech, free expression and discussion around issues to do with Islamism in this country is actually being suppressed.
Well, I mean, the example that Poppy just gave is that when it came to Prigozhin, they investigated because the Telegraph called him the founder of the Wagner movement, and he said, in fact, I'm a restaurateur. So I know you like to shoehorn kind of Islam into lots of stories, but I think this might be a little bit broader when it comes to Ipsos.
Well, let's be frank, this is coming amid the context of MPs basically suggesting to Keir Starmer that we should have blasphemy laws. We've got a Labour government that's refusing to give a national inquiry into the rape gangs for obvious reasons. The Labour Party is heavily dependent upon votes within Muslim communities. You've got ongoing concerns about sectarianism. Gaza politics basically becoming a dominant theme within local politics here in this country.
When it comes to Gaza, people are upset about the fact that 15,000 kids have been killed.
There are definitions over Islamophobia that many people struggle with. Michael, let's be frank. There are lots of people in this country who feel that when it comes to the issue of Islamism, there is a dogmatism that imposes itself on our public debate.
Well, so I'll tell you a story. When, I suppose, was it 2017, 2018? So there was a moment where the Labour Party was trying to introduce the International Holocaust Remembrance Association of Anti-Semitism. And I went on TV to say, this is an overreach, because what this is doing is saying what we can and can't say about Israel, about a foreign country. It says you can't say that Israel is racist. It says that you can't say that Israel is a colonial project, all these sorts of things, where I said, we shouldn't be putting this into our rules and regulations because this is making a political issue into one about discrimination. Now, I don't remember getting any backup from you at the time or from GB News. What I do remember was going on channels like this and getting called an anti-Semite.
Well, hang on a minute. This channel didn't exist in 2017, but hold that thought. Thank you to the panel, because I'm about to be joined shortly by the political director of Viktor Orban in Hungary, Balazs Orban, no relation, I should add. But after the break, before we get to that, the Football Association in this country has decided, talking about the return of common sense, that women's football is for women. I'm going to be joined by broadcaster and journalist Chris Scudder to discuss this latest ruling. Is common sense back in Britain? Hold your breath. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Well, the UK has the warm, sunny weather. There's more rain to come in Spain and Portugal. Fine conditions across much of Italy. A few showers across the eastern Mediterranean. Generally dry for the Canaries, but not particularly warm yet. Wet and windy weather sweeping into Portugal and across mainland Spain, although many of the southern costas of Spain dry and sunny. Certainly plenty of sunshine for Italy, Sardinia and Corsica. A few showers over Cyprus and Turkey. Temperatures will be rising in the Canaries over the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We're going to see cooler weather drift its way southwards during the next 24 hours. It's already been affecting Scotland and Northern Ireland through the day as a cold front has moved in from the Atlantic. That cold front slowly trundles its way southwards across central parts of the UK through the evening. Always the chance of a shower or thunderstorm across parts of Mid Wales into the Midlands ahead of that cold front. And a marked temperature contrast overnight because of the cooler air arriving from the northwest, but the warmth remaining in the south. In some parts of southern and southeast England, temperatures remaining in the mid-teens, whilst further north across northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, we start the day with low to mid-single figures. Nevertheless, for many, it is a dry and bright start to the day. I think a bit more cloud there across southwest England, South Wales compared with the recent days, and always that chance of a shower continuing through mid Wales and the Midlands. Northern England, Northern Ireland, southern and central Scotland seeing plenty of bright weather first thing. Cloudier skies for northwest Scotland, and we've got these showers moving in from the northwest on a brisk breeze. That breeze making it feel cool through the day, with temperatures back towards average for the time of year. However, for much of England and Wales, after any early showers peter away, actually there's plenty of sunny spells once again. And it's still going to feel relatively warm in the south and southeast. Temperatures into the mid-20s, even 27 Celsius in the far southeast, but back to the mid to high teens elsewhere across the UK. Patchy cloud here and there, not quite as widespread sunshine as we've seen so far this week. And then going into the bank holiday weekend, some heavy showers will affect southern counties of England through Saturday. There'll also be showers drifting in from the North Sea coast to affect the east and north of the UK. And that wind coming in from the North Sea is going to make it feel increasingly cold through Sunday and Monday, but actually there will still be some sunny spells.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, the current outbreak of gender-critical common sense seems to have infected the national game. The Football Association will be banning trans women from women's football on June the 1st. This is, of course, all downstream of the UK Supreme Court's landmark ruling that we mentioned earlier on, that the definition of a woman in the 2010 Equality Act only refers to biological women. This comes merely a month after the Football Association ruled that trans women could play in the women's game as long as their testosterone was at an acceptable level. What a difference a month and a Supreme Court ruling makes. Well, joining me to discuss this is journalist and broadcaster Chris Scudder. Chris, the return of common sense to British society, is this not?
Yeah, the FA have been waiting for legal or scientific guidance. That's what they've said all along. Really protecting, caught between the need to be doing the right thing as far as diversity goes and also protecting the integrity of the women's game. Now, they've been a little bit tardy, let's be honest. I mean, it's been 2 years since World Athletics said that trans athletes cannot compete in women's sport. Other sports as well, cycling, swimming, have been much quicker than football. So, yeah, I mean, the solution really, inclusivity is a part of the modern world. We know that. But I'm not quite sure how that works with football. Interesting that some sports like netball and triathlon have managed to kind of bridge, have got through what's a modern problem by having a mixed category or an open category where everybody can compete. But I think you've only got to look through social media today to see that feelings are pretty strong in protecting the integrity of the women's game. Words like fairness, common sense, sanity have prevailed here, really. It's been awkward for
Well,
the
I mean, I
Football
was going to say, Chris, if you
Association.
look at the polling in this country, you look at actually what people are thinking and feeling out there about this issue, consistently the mood has been turning against the inclusion of trans people in women's sports. And I think, in a sense, the FA judgment is really reflecting that tide. Also, the UK Supreme Court judgment, too, that we now are in a country in which people have become much more sceptical on this issue than they used to be.
Yeah, I mean, as I said at the very top there, Supreme Court, that's two big words, isn't it? The FA probably don't want to end up in a legal situation where a female player might sue them. That's where we're looking. We're looking at a legal situation. So the FA have waited for legal and biological. It's very. They said today it's very complex. It is. Nobody really knows. But fairness is the only way to look at it tonight, I think. People like Sharon Davis have been saying for a long time, the Olympic swimmer, that, you can't compromise. Seb Coe as well, a massive name in world sport, who has been very strong about this from the outset. They want to be inclusive where they can, but where you can't compromise. You can't have. It's very easy to say men playing women's sport. It's much more nuanced than that, isn't it? I mean, you look at the Imam Khalif boxing, similar subject matter, but different in so much as she was born a female. If we get down to the bones of this, and you troll through social media, people saying, "Why is a man hitting a woman?" Yeah, it's much more difficult than that, isn't it? And also,
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Yeah,
thanks, Chris Scudder, for joining us. I'm just going to turn to the panel. Michael Walker, return to common sense?
I think when it comes to trans inclusion, women's sports is one of the more clear-cut areas. I think especially elite sports. I think the thing that everyone can agree with is that if you've got male advantage, you shouldn't be able to compete in women's sports. Now, I think the scientific evidence suggests that if you take hormones for long enough, you lose any sort of advantage when it comes to muscle mass. But of course, it doesn't change your bone structure. So if you've gone through male puberty, you will have a male bone structure. I can see where the FA were before. I can see where they are now. I think especially at grassroots level, it does seem a shame, because I think there will be situations where you had a trans woman on a women's team. None of her sort of co-players minded, probably welcomed their presence, and none of the people opposing them did. But maybe some of them did, I don't know. It is one of those issues where I think trans women in sports is one of the less controversial ones.
It seems like we're at a watershed moment, though. The mood music has changed. We're sort of, the tide is turning.
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to something like sport, public opinion has been relatively cut and dry on this. People just aren't comfortable, particularly when it's a contact sport, right? Because of the high risk of injury, nobody wants to get into that debate, right? And I think actually this is kind of a rare example in the UK where institutions are working properly. They listened to valid criticism. They went along with the general consensus, and they went, OK, this is just not working. We need to have clear guidance, and they've done it. That's actually kind of good. I'm pleased about this.
Yeah, it's a return of common sense. We keep kind of hammering this theme. If this cascades across every sport, you could see within 12 months from now, Michael, the landscape's going to look radically different from it did a year ago.
Well, I think mine and yours definitions of common sense are quite different. I think maybe on sports is one place where the Venn diagram does overlap to some degree. My suspicion with you is that
are we agreeing with one another, Michael? This is a new thing.
From what you've said in other conversations on this, my suspicion with you is not just that you want to keep women's sport sort of separate from trans women, but you basically want trans people not to have much of a role in public life at all. Would be my sort of suspicion.
That's quite a sweeping. That is quite a sweeping assumption, and we'll no doubt return to that debate in the weeks to come. Michael, thank you for that. Well, thank you to the panel. Up next is a key Viktor Orban advisor. Balazs Orban, no relation I should add, is going to join me to discuss his country's relationship with the European Union, his country's position on issues like family policy, migration, borders, and also some recent moves regarding to the ICC. You don't want to go anywhere. You want to listen to this. This is really at the heart of European politics. I'll see you in 2 minutes.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk, and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches, and the dramatic fly-past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation tonight with me, Matt Goodwin, right here on GB News. Now, in Britain, we're very keen on comparing ourselves to our cousins in America or to our cuddly Scandinavian neighbours. But what about Hungary? Depending on who you speak to, Hungary is either at war with the European Union or an example to be followed for the rest of us in Western Europe. In our latest spat between Budapest and the EU, which we've observed from here in Westminster, Prime Minister Viktor Orban has warned that if Ukraine becomes an EU member state, there will be no EU funds for Hungary. Well, to find out more about that and many other issues regarding migration and family, I'm delighted to be joined now by Viktor Orban's political director, Balazs Orban, no relation, I should add.
Good evening.
Balazs,
hello.
Lots of people in London, lots of people in Westminster, absolutely fascinated, firstly, by the visible tension between Hungary and the European Union, particularly over the issue of migration and borders. Could you just explain to our viewers what's at the root of that tension and what Hungary is trying to achieve by adopting, let's say, a more conservative stance in the European Union?
Good evening. The problem is, I think, very simple. The European Union many times operates as a liberal empire, who wants to impose its views on the member states. And this is not how things should be done. We Hungarians, we don't think that we know the answers to all questions, but we firmly believe in nation states and we don't want mass immigration. So we have a policy which is working how to keep illegal migrants out. We have 0 illegal migrants in the country. And we don't want other countries to follow our approach. We understand there are different views, but we will not accept that the European Union wants to impose its open border policy on us. And what is happening now is that we have to pay €1 million fine per day because we don't let the migrants in, and we are, as they call, we are violating EU law. I think this is unacceptable. Some of our mutual friends are saying that it's the best investment you can have because integrating those illegal migrants would cost even more. But, you know, this is not the type of business you are waiting for.
So just to be clear, the European Union is fining Hungary €1 million every day for refusing to go along with its migration policy, which I think will be of interest to Brits who, of course, voted to leave the European Union because they felt that the European Union was really open to compromise.
Since you left, the European Union became harder.
Has become a more authoritarian organisation, you might say.
Unfortunately, yes. They are creating crises and they grab more power to try to solve it, which ends up in a disaster.
And does that tension extend to the war in Ukraine?
I think so. Of course, 3 years ago, when the war started, my prime minister said clearly, we know what happened. We know that Russia violated international law, and Ukraine has every right to defend itself. But the question is where we are heading. What will be the end game? And he was saying that it's obvious that there will be no solution on the battleground. So the sooner we get back to the diplomatic track, it could be better for Ukraine and definitely better for Europe. And our approach was completely rejected. They wanted to silence us. And what happened? We are here after 3 years. The West lost this war. The United States of America is going away. And now we have a massive problem how to finance and how to help Ukraine. And honestly, Europe, and I think UK and I think Hungary cannot afford it.
Absolutely. The other thing that has got a lot of interest here in the UK is Hungary's family policy. A lot of people seeing initiatives, tax changes that perhaps a lot of Conservatives here in Britain would like to see repeated here in the UK. At the same time, people will say Hungary is still struggling to turn around the collapsing birth rate in its country. I mean, here, by the end of the century, the birth rate will be 1.3. The replacement level is 2.1. We are nowhere near where we need to be. But is there any evidence from Hungary that you have found the way forward that might be missing here in Britain?
Well, I think if you want to save your own nation, you need people. And you need children. It's so simple. And immigration cannot be a solution because it destroys the nation or it creates a different society. So you need to have a supportive system towards the families. You don't have to force people. But if there are people who want to get married and want to have children, then the state should be responsible of helping them to achieve these goals. And we introduced almost 30 measures, and now we have the new measure which says that if you have 2 children and you are a mother of 2, you don't have to pay any income tax for your entire life.
No income tax for mothers who have 2 or more children.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Okay. Which is pretty radical.
It's radical, but I think if you want to offer some help to the mothers, then this is the way how to do it.
Okay, Michael Walker, an initial reaction: Hungary leading the way on family policy.
I don't mind the family policy. I think that's. I like the idea of ending income tax for women who've had 2 kids. I think that makes sense.
You're in a good mood tonight, Michael.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, because I didn't know we'd be on, I haven't sort of done much reading up on Hungary. My understanding was that most of the criticisms about your government come when it comes to sort of that free press and sort of allies of Viktor Orban buying up, especially sort of big liberal newspapers. And so that there are many people on the liberal side of politics who think that their voices have been suppressed in Hungary via those means, by sort of buying up opposition media establishment. As I said, I'm not an expert.
Give right of reply.
But isn't it the same criticism which are going against Trump and Farage and all these right-wing people? So this is exactly what is done by the liberals in every case, that they try to portray conservative governments as autocrats.
But you did buy up the newspapers, right? Or his friends did buy up those liberal newspapers.
I would say if you come to Hungary and follow the press and follow the public debate, I think it's more open than here in the UK or other Western European countries, because you can say freely what you want. If you have a conservative view, they will not go against you. If you have a liberal view, you can also say it. They will not go against you. So I think the media landscape is, I would say, quite free in Hungary.
Balazs, can I just, very briefly, because we're coming to the end, can I ask you a question? You're coming to the UK, you're in London. What do you think when you look at the UK from Hungary's perspective?
Well, a couple of years ago, when I came and talked to some conservative politicians, thinkers, I honestly didn't find too much in common, as it was for me like we are living in a different reality. I think now things changed. The Conservatives are thinking in a very similar way than the Hungarian Conservatives, and there is a growing front in US, in UK, and in continental Europe, which is about introducing a new kind of right-wing policies, which should be about how to protect our nation.
OK, well, conservatism ascendant. Keep watching this space. Thank you to Balazs Orban for joining. Of course, thank you to Michael Walker and Poppy Coburn. Now, up next tonight, we've got the Patrick Christis show presented by Ben Leo. Ben, what's coming up on your show tonight?
Hello, Matt. Great show. Of course, polls close at 10 p.m. We'll have reports and expert analysis from all over the country tonight, as well as the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press. And, Matt, did you hear about the asylum seeker, the Eritrean small boat arrival who pummeled a woman outside a bar in Bournemouth, got on top of her and pummeled her some more, but was spared jail because the judge said he had a brain that wasn't fully formed? The guy was 20. What's going on there? Here's your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We're going to see cooler weather drift its way southwards during the next 24 hours. It's already been affecting Scotland and Northern Ireland through the day as a cold front has moved in from the Atlantic. And that cold front slowly trundles its way southwards across central parts of the UK through the evening. Always the chance of a shower or thunderstorm across parts of mid-Wales into the Midlands ahead of that cold front. And a marked temperature contrast overnight because of the cooler air arriving from the northwest, but the warmth remaining in the south. In some parts of southern and southeast England, temperatures remaining in the mid-teens, whilst further north across northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, we start the day with low to mid-single figures. Nevertheless, for many, it is a dry and bright start to the day. I think a bit more cloud there across southwest England, South Wales compared with the recent days, and always that chance of a shower continuing through mid-Wales and the Midlands. Northern England, Northern Ireland, southern and central Scotland seeing plenty of bright weather first thing. Cloudier skies for northwest Scotland, and we've got these showers moving in from the northwest on a brisk breeze. That breeze making it feel cool through the day, with temperatures back towards average for the time of year. However, for much of England and Wales, after any early showers peter away, actually there's plenty of sunny spells once again. And it's still going to feel relatively warm in the south and southeast. Temperatures into the mid-20s, even 27 Celsius in the far southeast, but back to the mid to high teens elsewhere across the UK. Patchy cloud here and there, not quite as widespread sunshine as we've seen so far this week. And then going into the bank holiday weekend, some heavy showers will affect southern counties of England through Saturday. There'll also be showers drifting in from the North Sea coast to affect the east and north of the UK. And that wind coming in from the North Sea is going to make it feel increasingly cold through Sunday and Monday, but actually there will still be some sunny spells.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join